I was about 13 when I, started selling drugs myself and engaging in criminal activity, carrying a gun. I was tired of the abuse. I was tired of, not knowing if I was going to eat. Sometimes I preferred to be out on the streets and not home where I was getting abused or mistreated or, being hungry or not knowing, if I was going to have to pull my mom out the fucking bathtub from overdosing again,
Right. To have once been a criminal is no disgrace. To remain a criminal is the disgrace. I formerly was a criminal. I formerly was in prison. I'm not ashamed of that.
Hey, you guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of I Used to Be a Criminal with your guy, Marlo the Motivator. Listen, today we got another superb show. I got a terrific guest. It's Rosie Santiago. All right, Rosie, look, thank you for taking the time out to come to I Used to Be a Criminal. I really appreciate it. Thank you very much.
Of course. Thank you.
No problem. Well, listen, I like to give people an opportunity to introduce themselves on this show. And so that's what I'm going to do. Go ahead, introduce yourself to the audience. Let them know who you are and what you currently do for a living.
Okay. My name is Rosie Santiago. I am from Oakland, California. I am currently a life coach / case manager working for the Department of Violence Prevention with the city of Oakland. But before that, I used to be a criminal.
Consider it pure joy whenever you face trials of many kinds, because you know that the testing of your faith produces perseverance. Got an icebreaker for you, Rosie. Can you talk to me and let me know in the audience, what's your definition of success?
To overcome any challenges or burdens or obstacles that are put in a person's path to get to their desired point or outcome in life, whether that be career-orientated, life-orientated, family-orientated. Success is what you make it. It's, what you choose to call success, I guess I would say.
Good. Thank you. I appreciate that because, sometimes people, success is different for everyone, right? And somebody might think success is, owning a $1 million house, while somebody else might say success is just, successfully being able to go back to school and graduate. So right. I like to hear people's thoughts. Can you talk to the audience? I know you opened up about, where you're from, but I want to get a little deeper into that. Can you talk to the audience about where you grew up, the city, and how was your household growing up?
So I was born and raised in East Oakland, California. Growing up, I would say, was pretty challenging. My mother was a heroin addict and my father was a heroin addict as well. And so my grandmother and my grandfather actually were the ones who raised me, but they also had a lot of dysfunction and addictions. And so I, had it pretty rough. My mom wasn't really there. My dad was always in and out of prison. It was a lot of, my grandfather was an alcoholic. So there was some, if anybody knows what it is to have a parent that's an alcoholic, more of an angrier, violent alcoholic, things can be pretty bad. Especially, growing up, in that type of household, you don't really have a lot of the love and support that you need. Most of the time, it's a lot of broken promises, a lot of, feelings of unworthiness, abuse in many forms. There are nights where the electricity was cut off and we had no food to eat, where we would have to go next door to ask for hot water. I'm an 80s baby, so it was a lot different, back in the day growing up. You see pimps, players, hustlers, on the corner right outside. mom, uncles, family members engaged in that, cousins, all being involved in gangs and, and the lifestyle. And so that was kind of, my everyday life interaction, just
Right.
not really having any hope, just trying to, make it from day to day. You don't really have goals. You never think of college or, any type of positive outcome. It's typically just, am I going to make it through today?
Right. Yeah, and I understand your story. It's horrible for any kid, and I definitely understand. Let me ask you this, and I'm making no excuses because that's not what we're here to do, right? We learn from our mistakes, right? But let me ask you about your mistakes. Do you think that some of the bad choices that you made, I mean, I don't care if it's relationship wise, over the years, could be due to your childhood and experience growing up? And if so, can you explain?
Definitely. I kind of preach a lot about who I thought I was as a kid as to who I know I am now. And so I feel like, and I want to just say this, educating myself has taught me about my true history. And so if you take it all the way back to slavery, you see that we were not only stripped of our religious beliefs, of our family practices, of our natural language, of our natural heritage, but our fathers were taught to run. Our mothers were taught to not love because, from day to day, they didn't know if their baby was going to be there or not. I feel like, the system has created financial gain through breaking, Black and brown families apart. And so I feel like growing up in a household where I wasn't told that school is important, where I was told that I was not worthy, where I was called stupid, where I was called ugly, where I was called, derogatory terms, where I saw, how you see on television, you take your kid in the store and stuffs meat down their pants, and you think, oh, it's for dinner and it's for their drug habit,
Right.
or going to steal, watching family. I remember being in the back of my uncle's Cadillac, me and my cousins and my siblings with my mom and my uncle, and we'd go up to the Oakland Hills and they would go steal
Right.
shit,
Wow. Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and so I thought that was how life was supposed to be. We didn't deserve anything. We weren't supposed to become anything. Um, I believed in survival of the fittest. I saw drugs being sold. I saw, women being sold. I saw a number of things where I thought that's how life's supposed to be. And
Right.
so by the time I hit like 13 years old, I, started engaging in a bunch of criminal activities, selling drugs myself. Um, at a very young age. Let me just this. I was about 13 when I, started selling drugs myself and engaging in criminal activity, carrying a gun, thinking that was cool, thinking that was, going to keep me safe, especially, being a female and growing up I grew up on Seminary in East Oakland. And so, that's the cemetery after midnight.
Right.
A lot of times I preferred to be out on the streets and not home where I was getting abused or mistreated or, being hungry or whatever the case may be. So, be out with a bicycle, selling dope and trying to eat, and got involved in some gangs because those are the ones who accepted me. Um, being coming from broken homes, that's who accepts you, is the streets.
Right. Right.
Feel like everything I learned as a kid, directed me towards making all of the bad choices that I made because I didn't think I was worthy of anything. Uh, in my mind, going to college was the white people thing to do.
Mm.
I never saw anybody that was black or brown successful. They never highlighted us as people. TV shows, were predominantly the Brady Bunch and shit like that.
Right.
I got my ass whooped. There was no natural punishments or disciplines. It was abuse and neglect. And I saw my grandmother, like put up with hella shit from my grandfather because she didn't know how to take care of herself, lived for like 50 years of experiencing domestic violence. And so all those things that I learned as a kid, I took with me into adulthood, and it shaped my reality, and it shaped the way that I engaged in the world and the people that I interacted with and the decisions that I made, stealing, committing crimes, fighting, gang banging, selling drugs, all that shit I learned at home. I was a product of my environment, and it was what it was.
Right. That's you said something that was really striking to me. I mean, you said you didn't know who you were. And, that's a trip because a lot of times that's the case with a lot of people in life, right? Especially us who come from our, let's call it what it is, this poor ass area, right? Our parents on drugs, we struggling. We don't really know who we are. And so sometimes when I go speak, I ask people like, who are you? On my shirt, I say, who are you and why are you here? Right. And a lot of people get it twisted because they never really thought about it, who the fuck they are or why they're here. Right. When I'm talking about here, I'm not talking about just on earth. I'm talking about right now where you are currently in your life. Right. Why are you here? Right. And that's very important. And you said you didn't know who you were. Not knowing who you were put you in some very fucked up situations, to say the least. Let me ask you, for many people, there's typically a situation in life or maybe a moment or even a time frame that they can look back upon, right, and say, hey, you know what, this right here is the moment where I started to chase after negativity. Can you think back and reflect on that point in life when you decided to go after the negativity and illegal shit?
So I ran to the streets when I was about 13, but I was still like kind of in and out the house.
Okay.
And when I was about 15 was when I started sleeping in cars, having older friends rent motel rooms. I completely left the home about 15. To keep it 100, I wanted to get the fuck out of my house. I did not want to be there anymore. I was tired of the abuse. I was tired of, not knowing if I was going to eat, not knowing, if I was going to have to pull my mom out the fucking bathtub from overdosing again.
Right.
Got tired of asking the neighbors for hot water so I could shower when I was like 15, or being without, clean socks or even underwear, or, people talking shit. And I was tired. I wanted to get money, and the only way I knew how to do it was to go to the streets. It was everything. It was having somewhere safe to live. It was eating. It was, clothing myself. It was I had to do to get by, and whatever that meant was what I was going to do.
Wow. And you said something that was that stood out to me. You said that you felt more safe. So would you feel more safe sleeping in the car or in a hotel versus being in the house?
After, a lot of the transformation that I made with myself, excuse me if I get...
No problem. No problem. Take your time.
Generational dysfunction causes people to treat their own kin, pretty bad. And so, like I shared earlier, my grandfather was a pretty violent alcoholic. And so it seemed like I was the target for a lot of his anger or his frustrations. Partly because my grandma loved me. And I think it made him mad or whatever to see her, loving me the way she did. And he didn't get that love growing up. I needed to get away from him and from what was going on. And, you know, even though my grandma loved me and, you know, wanted me to be safe, it seemed like she was the target too. If he couldn't get to me, he would get to her. And so I just felt like it was better if I was gone. So that way me or her wouldn't have to deal with, you know, what was happening.
Yeah, I get it. I get it way too well. I'm sorry you had to experience that. You know, and that's the type of stuff. In my book, from the bottom to the top, I talk about a section that said the shit no child should have to go through. You know, I went through similar situations. You know what I mean? With my mom, she told me about my uncle, you know, raping her, and I have a sister that's really my cousin, right? And it's just crazy. You know, I went through the same type of abuse when I was younger, so I definitely understand what you're talking about. And once again, I'm sorry that you had to experience that. But I do know that just, you know, you're dealing with Kevin and some of the stuff you're doing out there is whatever you went through made you a stronger individual. And you can pour into some of these young women out here and these young men in the streets that they still out here, you know, taking these chances, pulling out guns, shooting each other because they experience the same thing that you and I experienced. And they haven't come in terms with being able to express themselves and let people know and get off their chest. And I think that's a good thing. You can also pour in them and get them the insight to let them know it's all right. How much time did you donate to the criminal justice system? I use the term donate because, you know, at the end of the day, you know, we giving them our time. We in there busting our ass for 8 cents an hour. And so I'm calling it donation. How much time would you say you donated?
In total, I guess from a kid, from a juvenile to an adult, about 12 years.
12 years.
So I first started getting in trouble at about 15 when I went to the streets. When I just went all out to the streets, I started getting in trouble for like robberies and things like that. And so I did some time in, you know, juvenile hall. And then after juvenile hall, I got in trouble when I turned 18, on and off until about 21. And then when I was 23, I did 10 and a half years in a California women's correctional facility.
Damn. Yeah, 10 and a half, man. Wow. That's a lot of time right there. And you're talking about things that happened to you as a kid, and the system don't give a shit about us black and brown folks and the stuff we go through. They look at us like, hey, look, you should be able to survive. You should be able to make it. Don't worry about your childhood, right? But, you know, they kids ain't going through the same shit, right? It's a different struggle for us. 10 and a half years. Wow. For many people, right, even myself, right, yeah, they don't tend to hear a lot about what happens on the women's side of the prison, right? We all hear about the men's side, and you hear about the horrible racism, which I experienced myself, and the gangs, the violence, and shit like that. Is it the same things on the women's side, or is it different?
You know, it's similar. The only difference is we're not as structured like as the men are. Like, I guess we're kind of divided in terms of like if you're from Northern California or if you're from Southern California, like the people that were from like LA and you know, San Diego and Pasadena, like they all the Latinos hung out with the whites out there, and then everybody from Northern California, and we were like a Bay Area car, like black, brown, white, Filipino. You know how we are in the Bay. Like we don't do that like discrimination. We don't do that. Right. It's like everybody eat. You know, we were about money, whatever. We weren't like really on that gangbanging type in prison. It wasn't beneficial to nobody to be on that type of hype.
Right.
And not only that, like as a woman, we're more family orientated. So we create this family. I think the family unit that we all wanted as kids.
Wow.
You know, being in prison, we had sister, auntie, mama, niece, nephew, whatever, you know. We gravitated towards creating this family inside that you don't find out here. And it's some real ass people that you find in prison. You know, I met some of the dopest women, some of the most loving and compassionate people, some of the most talented and gifted, you know, women inside. And, you know, but can't get it twisted either because they all beasts.
Right.
You know, they
right.
and they know how to be just as shitty.
Right.
You know, so I've seen some crazy shit. You know, a lot of people, if they don't come from, you know, the gutter, or they don't come from the streets, they don't come from where we come from, prison will break them, and they
right.
become a, you know, people will go into prison and come out a drug addict. They never did drugs life before and come home an addict, or will come home, you know, gay, or you know, a worse criminal than they were before, because they
right.
that they shouldn't have learned in a place that's supposed to rehabilitate you.
Right. Right.
You know,
Let me ask you, since you were talking about that, do you mind talking about me? Because, you know, there's going to be some young woman, some young man watching this show, or maybe some old head, right, checking out the show, and they haven't probably been to prison yet, or maybe they forgot. Can you talk about maybe something you've seen in there that the average person wouldn't want to be around or wouldn't want to experience?
most of the time, the women's prison is about it's two things that'll get a motherfucker caught up in prison. One is the dope game, and two is another female's woman.
Okay. Okay.
That's how it is.
okay.
And so I've seen females, or heard about females getting stripped, where, you know, once they step inside, they'll go as far as to going inside of them to get their bundle. You feel me?
Yes, I feel you.
If you owe a drug debt and you don't pay, they will do bomb threats. So the prison yard will get shut down for weeks at a time, so motherfuckers don't pay their debts.
Oh.
So they can't shop and get their canteen taken because they don't want to pay the debts.
Right.
It'd be riots on the yard over this girl fucking with that girl's wife.
A whole riot?
Riots. Prison for weeks.
Wow.
Something called gassing, where they make a little mixture of shit and have your whole skin melting off.
Wow. You said mixture of shit. I know what you're talking about. What about to that person that don't know what you're talking about? Do you mind getting a little graphic for a second?
Oh, maybe some chemical and sugar and boiling in a pot might do some damage to somebody's skin. You don't want to touch your face if you feel me, because it might come off. It's not funny, but it's like some real shit.
Yeah.
You know, I've seen people get stomped out. I've been in a few altercations myself. You know, I've seen girls get bullied just because they're not. You feel me? Like, okay, like, for example, for me, I was considered a long-term, not a lifer. So it was still kind of our house, but not really. So you had to basically set your feet on solid ground, because you don't want to become a target. You don't want to be somebody's bitch. You don't want to be washing their fucking clothes in the sink, or, you know what I'm saying, doing their laundry, whatever. They're cooking or whatever, them taking your shit. And so you got to do what you got to do. If a motherfucker beats your ass, fight the fuck back. Because by not fighting back, you're only allowing yourself to become a target for other people. You know? So that my first fight in the receiving yard was because, you know, this lifer lady, like, she was also trying to make a name for herself and let people know, she had just got like 25 to life. This is my sink. You can't use my sink. You ain't finna tell me I can't use a motherfucking sink that belongs to the state. I'm sorry.
Right.
So he got at me crazy, and then I just snatched her off the bunk and gave her the business. And then after that, I wasn't letting her like bully nobody that came in the room, because you're on receiving for anywhere to 4 to 6 weeks.
Oh, wow.
So it could be longer depending on what's going on over the wall, which is general population. If the prison is shut down, you ain't going nowhere. You're going to stay on A yard.
Okay.
And so, you see hella shit you see on TV about prisons. You see motherfucker will get stuck, gassed, beat up, jumped. They do that shit to the police too. Some of the worst correctional officers are in a women's facility, because those female COs will fuck with you because they're a CO, and because they will throw your ass in shoe or ad seg, or you'll catch a case, they'll target you. You know what I'm saying? Like, call you out your name, go hit yourself for no reason, take your visits, take your canteen, whatever they feel like do, because it's their prison.
Right. Yeah, I had them telling me that before, man. Hey, this is it's our shit. You're gonna do what we tell you to do. And I think a lot of people think they on the street. They get it twisted, thinking that when they go into jail or prison, they're gonna be able to run shit, man. No, the police run that, and that's clear.
Yep.
Yeah.
Exactly. They're tired. They come from 20, 30 years of abuse. They're there for fucking killing their baby's dads or whoever that was beating on them, or you feel me? They're not going to keep being a target. You get tired.
Right.
And so that will happen to an inmate, will happen to a CO.
Wow. For many of us that spend time in jail or in prison, there's a time or a moment in our life we come to the realization that, you know what, it's time to give up this foolish shit, right? It's time to stop going back. It's time to change. Can you recall the moment that you came to that realization and you made a conscious decision to stop chasing after fucking jail sentence and become the person that I'm looking at on the screen today?
So, I'd shared that, my grandmother raised me. So while I was fighting my case in Santa Rita, I experienced like a number of deaths, in my family, that really like made an impact on my decisions to change. I lost my sister when I was in Santa Rita fighting my case. And then,
sorry to hear that.
And then my grandfather, he passed away when I was in Rita too.
Oh, wow.
Like numb to kind of his passing, but after a while, like when forgiveness plays a part, you mourn the good person that they were.
Right.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
But so when I was in prison, I was going to work one morning I was going through work exchange, and there was like, Santiago, go to the sergeant's office. And I'm like, for what? They're like, the sergeant wants to see you. And I'm like, fuck, I got a 115. Like, that's the first thing that crossed my mind.
Hey, what's a 115? I mean, I know what it is, but can you tell the audience?
Right up. You lose your date. I lost my date a couple times. You can lose visits, you can lose your packages, you can lose canteen. So my first thought was, fuck, I got a 115. So I'm going up to the sergeant's office, and I get to the sergeant's office, and I get in the sergeant's office, and he's like, hey, Miss Santiago, I'm sorry to tell you this, but your grandma's in a coma.
Oh, shit.
She's slipping into, just like that, hella harsh. Like, she's slipping into a coma, and they don't know, how long she has to live. And your aunt's on the phone. I'm like, what?
Wow.
You know, I didn't hear nothing about her being sick or, you know, nothing. Um, so I get on the phone, my aunt's on the phone. She's like telling me like, I'm sorry, honey. I didn't want to have to tell you this way, but um, Granny's gonna go, and you know, I want you to be able to say goodbye and whatever. Um, and so I got on the phone with her. Um, and I was her favorite. So, you know, I was her baby. I was the last one that she raised.
Okay.
So that whole time while she's in pain and suffering and hurting, she's worried about me, talking about, I love you, Mija. I'm going to pray for you. Um, you know, all these things um, that she should have been able to say to me in person.
Right.
So I had a few minutes on the phone with them, and then they let me go back to the dorm or whatever, to my unit, instead of going to work. Um, so I go back to the dorm, and I'm just sitting there like hella numb. Like, you know, you don't cry in prison. You ain't supposed to cry in prison. You're supposed to show any emotion. So I remember like this rage like coming over me, and I was like hella angry. I was pissed off. And I remember like socking the fire extinguisher, and the CEO coming and letting me go into my room because he didn't want me to do anything to anybody else.
Right.
I was mad as fuck. Was hella mad. Like, what? Like, confused. Like, how is she dying? Why is she dying? Like, what the fuck happened? Like, why aren't they taking care of her? You know? And I started like being mad at myself because I wasn't there to take care of her. And then so like a few months go by. Well, she passed away the following weekend.
Sorry to hear that.
And then months go by, and I was pissed off at the world. And I was drinking Pruno all the time. I was with my, you know, doing dumb shit, not going to work, not going to school, not doing anything. I didn't give a fuck. I was like, I'm gonna get my third strike and I'm gonna die in this bitch. Like, whatever. It is what it is. I stopped caring, you know. I'd have my kids' pictures up on the wall. I don't want to see shit. I don't want to feel shit. I was just like in this hate, this fucked up mind state.
Right.
And I woke up one morning and I was in tears, and I was crying like a baby. And I was in this, it was like the rawest of emotion. Like, I don't think I've ever cried like that many tears in my life. One of my roommates came home from work, and she held me. You know, we were all close in the room because you live with, when you're a long-termer or a lifer, you live with people who are going to be together because you don't want people coming in and out.
Yeah, that shit. Yeah.
And so she just like held me, you know, in her arms and let me cry. And I remember thinking to myself, like, she would have wanted me to keep destroying myself. How am I honoring her memory by being drunk or being high or fighting or getting in trouble or spending more time away from my kids? And I needed to, you know. And so I had to go on this whole ass journey of rediscovering myself and forgiveness. And forgiveness is the biggest thing that a person can do when it comes to healing changing. But losing my grandmother was not being able to say goodbye, not being able to take care of her was what did it for me. My family thought, so she had cancer, she had brain cancer. They found a tumor in her head that spread throughout her body. By the time they found out she had the tumor, it was already too late for them to do anything for her but put her on medication and let her just kind of go, peacefully.
Right.
But with having fucking addicts for kids, nobody was really taking care of her like she should have been taken care of. I should have been the one to take care of her. All the love that I have in me, everything I give of myself is because of that lady. And she died, and it changed everything for me. Who I was, who I thought I was, everything went with her. And then was also reborn in her death,
So is it safe to say that in her death, she saved your life?
Yeah.
And let me ask you this: I hear the pain in your heart, and I know this probably wasn't one of the questions you probably thought I asked, but it's on my heart. So I want to ask you: have you been able to forgive yourself for not being there for her? Because it sounds like it's still hurting you a little bit.
Probably not. I've forgiven a lot of things. Probably not.
Yeah. I hear you. I understand. That's something, you probably, I know you're still working on it. There's a lot of things we still have to work on. Life is a journey, right? And for me, hearing your pain and that knowing that, you love her like you do, I can understand it's kind of tough. And I mean, that's something you gotta work towards, making sure you work on forgiving yourself for that. Cause I mean, that's how life throws these curveballs, man. You look back at your childhood, and if your childhood probably wasn't so bad, you probably wouldn't have been in prison. You know what I mean? So don't blame yourself. Hopefully you can get around, without blaming yourself about that. Before you left prison, did you have a plan? Or did you, like a lot of people, just come home and, say, hey, look, I'm about to get released. I'm just going to freestyle.
So this is where it gets good. After my grandma passing, I started to really think about, my life in itself. Initially, I got kicked out of the Oakland Public School District in like the 8th. So I didn't have a high school diploma. I didn't even make it to high school. When I tried to go to Fremont to enroll in school, they told me they didn't want me. Probably because I had on red too. But he was like, well, you got on red. And, he just thought I was a piece of shit, basically. They didn't want me there. So I tried to go to adult. That didn't really work out. And then I had kids, and then I was in a pretty bad relationship. And my kid's dad didn't want me to do anything. He wanted to know why I wanted to go to school and shit, like done things. So I initially started going to school for my GED, hoping that, if it ever came a time for violent offenders to get some time off, that getting my GED would help. I never thought I would pass the GED because, I was always told I was stupid as a kid, that I wasn't good enough, that I wasn't smart enough. So one day I got a ducat under the door after taking my test for my GED, and it said,